Okay, we're broadcasting. It's recording. Awesome.
Wish I had my hair.
Okay, so what do we need to do first? Who pulled up the case study, like the little document?
I have it. Can you guys hear me clearly?
Yeah.
So maybe first, let's talk about, did anyone get to finish reading the whole case study?
I finished it.
I finished it.
I have not finished it.
Do you guys want to let us know, kind of just fill us in and summarize it? I have it in front of me right now. I started reading it, but
I'm wondering if it's not too long. Do we just want to read the whole thing?
Yeah,
we could
I can start reading it. Okay. Responding to tragedy. Peter and Jeanette were newlyweds in 1960. Less than a year into their marriage, the unthinkable happened. Jeanette, 7 months pregnant, tripped and fell down the flight of stairs at their apartment. Sore and not any better after 2 days, sought medical attention and was directed by her doctors to go to the hospital. There they induced labor, and the premature boy named Philip was born too small and too weak to have a good chance at starting life. The couple already had its share of challenges in their short relationship. Both Jeanette and Peter came from difficult homes, circumstances where neither had seen great examples of love and mutual problem-solving between parents. Money was tight, and Peter worked long hours to provide for the young family, but they loved and were very committed to one another. When they met, Jeanette was a single mother trying to provide a good home for her daughter, Jennifer, on her own. And after meeting at church and dating a few months, Peter had proposed to Jeanette by saying, "I love Jennifer and wonder if I could be her father." Oh, that's sweet. They were both pleased when Jennifer's birth father allowed Peter to adopt Jennifer and cement their relationship as a family. Now the young family was facing a very difficult situation. Jeanette and Peter were concerned and sad at the prospect of losing their son, and late in the evening the nurses suggested that Peter go home and get some rest. He'd been notified of the emergency delivery at work and had gone a long time without sleep. He could return in the morning, and they would certainly notify him if there was a change in little Philip's condition. Early the next morning, Peter arrived at the hospital and spoke with Jeanette, and she began discussing funeral arrangements for their son, suggesting who might best help them under the circumstances, and suggesting that her mother might know how to help them. Peter listened, sadly, for a while, but then became upset. "You're giving up on Philip? He isn't even dead, and you're acting as if he has no chance of living." Who would like to take over? Yeah.
I can. Jeanette was taken aback by his response. "Is he just so upset he cannot handle the truth?" she thought to herself. He was a strong man, but maybe this is more than he could handle. It had been difficult enough that she had gone through. Oh, Astrid just hung up. Astrid, can you hear us?
Yeah, I can hear you guys now. I'm so sorry.
Okay.
Hi, Astrid.
Okay. Where I was.
Okay.
Hold on a second. Okay. It had been difficult enough that she had gone through the night alone without Peter, but now this just made it all more difficult. A short argument ensued. He accused her of giving up hope. She accused him of not being realistic. Jeanette later said, "It took me a while to realize that he really didn't know. No one had called him and told him that our baby had died during the night." That sucks. "That is why he didn't come to be with me and comfort me, and that is why he was upset with me now. I have hours of sadly dealing with this alone, accepting what had happened to Philip and preparing myself where to go next." He had no idea what had happened. The couple set about making what arrangements they could for a funeral and burial. Jeanette turned to her mother for assistance, who had just laid her own late husband to rest. Little Philip was buried, a plot set aside for indignant persons because the young family had so few resources. Peter recalled sadly that it was a very small casket, holding his hands about 2 feet apart. After that day, Peter and Jeanette did not talk about their son, his burial, or their sadness. They never spoke about it again until 2013, when they were interviewed about this case. Any sense of sadness, loneliness, regret, or resentment lay within each of the two newlyweds. Jeanette sought to turn to her mother and to her little girl for emotional connection, and only the latter remained accessible when work took them out of state. Okay, who wants to go?
I can. Life goes on. Jeanette and Peter went about life working very hard in their respective domains to provide a better life for their family as it grew. Jeanette managed the home and providing child care, and Peter providing economically and fixing up cars and home to function without spending money they did not have. In 1962, they had a little girl, followed by a little boy in 1963, and another girl in 1966. In 1969, Jeanette knew something was different. This pregnancy felt unlike the others, and she suspected strongly she was having twins. After all, Peter's family had a history of twins. One extended family member had given birth to 3 sets of twins and 2 sets of triplets. But the doctor assured her that this was not the case. In the days before sonograms, listening closely to heartbeats was virtually the only way to assess whether there would be multiple births. The doctor checked several times for a second heartbeat and found none. In March 1969, Jeanette went into early labor and delivered a tiny little boy, Jeff. He weighed 3.5 pounds, but was relatively strong. Labor continued, and 29 minutes later, Jerry was born, a full pound lighter than his big brother. The two of them were placed in one incubator, and their condition remained tenuous for some time. Yellow with jaundice and very dehydrated, the 2 little boys grew stronger, and Jeff was able to come home in a couple weeks. Little Jerry was not as strong and remained in the hospital about 2 weeks longer before he could join the rest of the family. The older children were thrilled with the 2 babies who were so much alike, and all had feared they might never make it home at all. But old patterns established early in the marriage continued in the growing family. Although Janet had grown accustomed to caring for the children and managing the household, she often felt overwhelmed and very alone, despite her husband seldom leaving home for personal or recreational interests. He worked long hours, taking extra shift whenever possible, and sometimes working small second jobs to secure more income. Does someone else want to pick it up?
I can. Jeanette frequently expressed her sense of frustration and loneliness. Peter took it to heart, believing he was not satisfying his wife, and responded by working harder and longer hours in hopes of providing resources that would help to reduce her workload. Even as they beautified their home and purchased valued conveniences, it did not seem to relieve her tension for long, and both felt very, very stuck, sometimes feeling overwhelmed and hopeless. The oldest boy recalls having a sense of being very hopeless, fearful that his family would not survive. Relationships between siblings were not very healthy either. The older children fought a lot when the parents were gone. Sometimes they were verbal fights, but just as often it turned into hitting and threats. They always ended in tears and a sense of shame and guilt for not being good kids. This didn't happen when parents were home, though they often did find out later.
Tragedy strikes again. Late in February 1975, Jerry became quite ill, apparently suffering from a bad case of the flu. Jeanette had taken the 6-year-old to the doctor, who advised that she simply seek to reduce his fever via children's aspirin. Several days later, he fared no better, and she stayed home from church on Sunday morning to care for him, while Peter took the other children. When the family returned home, however, Jeanette and Jerry were nowhere to be found. Peter made several phone calls to people whom he thought might not know how to find his wife, and she eventually called from the hospital and asked him to hurry. Jerry's health had taken a turn for the worse, and after the family left for church, he was ashen and disoriented. Janet had driven Jerry to the hospital in Rexford, Idaho, where her doctor asked her to meet him. When he saw the little boy's condition, he ordered him rushed by ambulance to the Elliott's Hospital in Idaho Falls, the only facility with intensive care unit in the area. Jerry's heart stopped 3 times en route to the Idaho Falls Hospital, and his heart was beating faintly, but he had not regained consciousness. 2 days later, there had been no improvements, and the doctor explained that his body functions were driven by life supports and that he was dead for all intents and purposes. I guess I can break.
Can you guys hear me okay?
Mm-hmm.
Making a difficult decision and another one of life's many surprises. Peter and Janet considered the dire condition of their little boy and decided it was important to involve the rest of the family in the important decision to be made. On Wednesday morning, the bishop came to the home and helped the family to discuss the situation. Peter and Janet explained to their children that Jerry's spirit likely was no longer in his body and that machines were the only thing keeping his heart and lungs operating. They discussed the likelihood that God would prefer that he be allowed to rest, but that it needed to be a family decision. So they knelt in prayer, thanking Heavenly Father for allowing Jerry to be part of their lives and asking for inspiration as to what would be his will for this child. After getting off their knees, it was obvious to at least some of the children that they needed to let their brother pass away. All family members were sad, but continued the conversation throughout the day. The next day, Peter and Janet were met at the hospital by another physician who wondered whether they would remove the life supports from their son. Mr. and Mrs. Smith, I know you have considered taking your son off life supports. This may help you to make up your mind. There is an elderly woman here who desperately needs the resources your son is using. She's had a stroke, and she may die even with the life supports, but she will certainly die without them. Peter and Janet knew right away that they needed to allow their son to pass and hope that the resources he was using might benefit someone else. The equipment was removed from Jerry's body, and both parents were surprised to learn that the elderly woman who needed those valuable resources was Peter's grandmother. She had always played a very important role in Peter's life. Their homes were immediately next to one another, sharing a common driveway. It was very difficult for this couple to see their little boy passing as another dear family member clung to life. Jerry died February 28, 1975. Peter's grandmother passed away March 22nd after lying unconscious for weeks.
I read Opportunities and Blessings. Jerry's older brother offered his eulogy. Though only 11 years old, somehow he thought it would be an honor to express his love for his little brother. He was surprised and sad to find that he experienced a great deal of support as the 500 funeral attendees wept with him. Parents and siblings desperately missed Jerry and still do, but a number of changes began to occur in their home at that time. Jerry's older brother cannot recall a single physical altercation between siblings after that day. Verbal conflict reduced to almost nothing right away. Appreciation and affection were expressed more openly. Parents were more patient and more engaged with one another. Some of the other tensions seemed to also ease as parents relied more upon one another. The family members never discussed that they should behave or interact differently. It seemed to happen quite spontaneously. But Jeanette explained the night Jerry died, Peter said, "We don't know how long we have with any of these kids." Jerry's older brother recalls, "I don't know that they intentionally changed how they interacted, but somehow was remarkably different, and I will forever be grateful." A few years later, I awoke from a remarkable dream in which I had the opportunity to talk with my brother. I told him how desperately I missed him and that I wished nothing had ever happened. I was surprised that he was an adult in my dream, not a little boy, but I was more surprised that he explained that it was all part of a greater plan and that he came to our home with the expectation of that taking place. I recall that as he explained it to me, it immediately made sense and I began to see changes and improvements that I had not noticed before, being only 15 years old. I recall in my dream I hugged him and tightly wept while I thanked him for loving us so much and for being part of making such an important changes in our lives. I woke up facing the ceiling of my room, surprised because it was only the afternoon that I had not recalled falling asleep. My pillow was wet with tears, but I felt great peace and a sense of contentment and appreciation that affects me even as I share this. I shared my experience with my sister, 16. Her face got bright and I told her of my funny dream, and she asked me for some details. As I began to share them, she finished what I was saying, then explained that she had had the same dream. I will forever be grateful. Okay. That was sad.
Yeah. It's a cool ending though. That they both
Yeah.
had the same dream.
Yeah.
Jerry was put in their lives so that he could help the family.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a good perspective to have.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so on the sheet, I'm looking at it. It says to briefly summarize the case. I think we can just do that later.
Yeah.
It's pretty simple. And then it says list any principles or concepts from the course that can be applied in offering help or direction for this family. So what do you guys think? Principles or concepts?
I think one that would be very helpful for this family would be like the family council. I think it just kind of like brings the family together, and you're allowed to like, it helps you talk about what you're feeling or what's going on, and I think that will just help bring the family together.
I'm typing all this.
I agree. I think family council would be good. I'm trying to think of like what terms in the course that I like can remember.
I think if they did the mood log,
Yeah.
Yeah.
you know, and really identified what feelings that they have, and then they could discuss it with a counselor why they're having those feelings and really talk it out. Because I think he's feeling guilt because he wasn't there to begin with, and then he was resenting her because she didn't contact him, but she thought he knew. And then I think that guilt, and because they just buried it and they never talked about it, I think there was a lot of self-blame there. And what is it, the fortune, where you're, well, first magnifying the situation, the self-blame, assuming that you know what the other person's thinking, so the mind reading.
Yeah.
So the mood log.
That would be good. I was thinking about, I couldn't remember the name of it, but the Hills stress diagram thing, where it showed like this crisis and then went down, then came back up and everything. I
know what you're talking about. I'm trying to.
I cannot remember the name of it.
I can't.
But I was thinking with that how they can realize like it's going to be hard, but it will get through it, and they'll have other road bumps. But when you apply the family councils and the mood logs and all the other things and the stuff we have yet to learn, they'll be able to come out stronger because of it. They even now have become out stronger because of it. They're fighting less as a family. The parents are supporting each other more.
Also, I think it's the ABCX model. I think it's in the same paper that you guys are talking about. I can't remember exactly what it said in there, but it talks a lot about like cognitions and changing your thoughts in there. And I think that with this family, that's kind of what happened is, you know, when things happened in the beginning with their first baby, it affected them more negatively. But then this time they kind of changed their thought process. They're like, you know what? We don't know how long we're going to have with these children, and we need to cherish every moment. And so that change of their mindset kind of, you know, helps their family to grow. So I think that is a good one.
A really good one.
There's another thing I think I remember like reading this week. It was like the reducing stress, like the mindfulness therapy thing. It's like I just remember it talked about how like it can help a lot of people. I mean, it went like in specifics for like diseases and stuff, but then like in situations as far as like increasing empathy, spirituality, and helping like your inner well-being, so that you're not taking part in like a group and things, but then like kind of focusing on yourself in a way. It's like helping you help yourself so that you can help your family.
Yeah, and I think like with that, with like the mood log, I forgot what I was gonna say. Never mind. I'll come back to that when I remember.
I figured it out. It's those truncated roller coaster profile where it goes up and down, up and down. So I'm gonna put that in there. Okay. I'm kind of typing our ideas, and then we can add in our thoughts to it.
I remember what I was gonna say. So hold on. Sorry.
No, go for it.
So with the mood log, like it helps you to realize what's upsetting you. So like when you're in the mood log, you're like, okay, how do you feel about this? You know, what's making you feel this way? And like writing that out and putting that out there helps you to kind of see it from the outside. Like, you know how it is like when your friends or like your, you know, people you know in your life are talking about something and that's upsetting them. And from the outside, you can see, you know, what they can do to help themselves. But when you're experiencing it, you're just like, you can't look that far. And so I think with the mood log, you know, with all of them writing down their feelings, especially in the beginning, I think that really would have benefited them to write it all out. And then maybe to share that together in a family council, talk about their feelings, get them all out in the open.
What's interesting is I could relate to a lot of this because my husband and I, we've lost a child before, and then how they explained how Janet was a single mom. My sister was actually a single mom, and then her husband, they were able to adopt Devin and get sealed together in the temple. So I can kind of like relate to that, and I can see how they were very disengaged to begin with. Like they were very together, and then it turned them into a very disengaged family because they didn't talk. And they all just kind of, they just held, like they were in denial and they held it in. They didn't talk. They were very, so I think looking at, like I'm looking at the circumplex model, how they went from being very cohesive and then they were disengaged with each other, and the family went very kind of chaotic in the sense of the arguments and everything, but then they came back together. I mean, I guess we could throw that in there if we wanted.
Yeah,
but I think we have. That's really good. I think we have some good points, though.
I think so too. Do you guys want to move on to the next one? Do you feel good about that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So it says list relevant risks and dangers the family and its members face.
Wait, I think you skipped one. You skipped. Oh no, you didn't. Sorry, I forgot that we skipped the first one. You're right. Yeah.
Sorry, it's okay. So relevant risks and dangers. Maybe going back to the way they were, kind of like shutting down.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things I thought about was like turning to the church, a relationship. Like they'd start blaming God or something like that, and would start to fall away from the church. Anyway.
Or
again, finding blame.
Or like again, because a lot of the siblings are getting older. Like the sister is 16 years old, and the brother was 15 when he had that dream. And so I feel like, you know, since they're getting older, you know, the family's gonna be going through a lot of changes in the next couple of years. And so I think, you know, a danger they might face is with all these changes, they will kind of start to digress. You know, if like one kid moves out, then the people that are left will feel like another piece is missing and kind of start going back to the way they felt in the beginning, like not being able to express their feelings or not feeling close or not being able to rely on each other. Yeah.
I think one like that would be kind of hard because I don't like they lost their son, but like he was on life support, so I kind of can't help but wonder like feel that a big thing is guilt in families, and sometimes like you make decisions and you really kind of hope and pray that that Heavenly Father is guiding you. But I think another thing that we do a lot is we question ourselves too much. It's like you just question yourself a lot. So when I was reading that, my first thought was like, I feel like as a mother, especially knowing that like any opportunity, you'll never know if like there could have been an opportunity, later on that your son could have survived.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think a lot of guilt is like something that could potentially be harmful to the family and give the family, siblings, parents especially, like sort of a PTSD.
Yeah, and I think that like another part of that, so it sounds like they rely a lot on their spirituality, like knowing that their brother is in, his soul's in a better place and that whole thing. And when they were in the hospital, it was the bishop who was like, his soul's not in his body anymore. You should take him off life support. He was like kind of the one who was putting those thoughts in their head. So I feel like maybe what you were saying, like them feeling guilty and like wondering was that the right decision, they could like go back and put that guilt and that frustration on the bishop, and in turn put that on the church in general. And
right,
once you do that, then that would start to tear away that comfort that they originally felt with, where is my son? He's doing okay. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm. So again, placing blame back onto the church and questioning.
Yeah, kind of because of the way things went down in the hospital.
Right.
I think going along. Sorry.
The other good too was she really relied on her mom for support versus turning to each other. They're relying on not that rely on family, but during these difficult times, we need to come together and try to work together. And so they were kind of like, he focused on work and thought that was going to help solve everything. She turned to her mom for moral support and thought like that would help the situation. So they were kind of leading separate lives.
Didn't the mom die in the...
Grandma.
Okay. Never mind then.
I think another thing is, they're at a high risk of depression, just like giving up. Like, that's the second child they've lost. So it's like, it would be easy for them.
So like a lot of fear might be a problem, like especially kind of like what I was saying earlier about, a lot of changes coming in the future with their kids getting older. I feel like as a parent, that would scare me to know that I've already lost 2 children. I would be kind of afraid to let them go out into the world, because I wouldn't want to feel any more pain.
Yeah.
And so I feel like that might be a problem, is they might feel apprehensive and maybe not be as supportive of each other's goals because they don't want people to leave. You know what I'm saying? They want to be able to have control over what's happening.
They get like probably overprotective.
Yeah, overprotective. That's a good word.
Overprotective and becoming rigidly enmeshed, like going back to that circumplex model where they're very authoritarian, strict discipline, very controlling, because of protection.
Yeah.
Okay.
And Michelle, as you're typing it out, like if you feel like there's any parts in there where, we need to go over again before we hang up, just let us know.
Okay. Let me tell you what I have so far. So on the second question, the principles, I have the circumplex model, how they went from engaged to disengaged back to connected. Family counsel, the mood lock, helping you to realize what is upsetting you and see it from the outside perspective and see what can help, how they can help themselves and what really is the truth of the matter. The Hills truncated profile, realizing that there's always going to be ups, hills, and valleys, and challenges, and how that can help you to kind of deal better. Mindfulness therapy, and then the ABCX model, like explaining, and this is what happened, these are why, the dangers, and then the overall ending effect. And then for the next question, shutting down, rejecting God and the church, finding blame. With all these changes, they would digress and revert back to the beginning of how they were. Guilt and families and hope, and I've said guilt and families and hope, and pray that Heavenly Father is guiding you, but we can hold on to that. But they still held on to the guilt, and even though they relied a lot on their spirituality, they could place blame on the gospel and also blame like the bishop again, and then walk away from the church and again seeking blame and reason for the tragedy. She turned to her mom for support, and husband worked and led separate lives. Instead of coming together, they were trying to solve it their own way. Fear that children would get hurt, not be supportive of the family, overprotective, becoming rigidly enmeshed. And then now lists relevant opportunities presented to this family as a result of the crisis. That's the next question.
Okay. Well, they could keep on, because right now they're on a really good path. You know, they're not arguing, they're getting along. So I think that an opportunity with them would be for them to keep going forward and to keep supporting each other.
Okay.
I don't know, maybe the parents' marriage will get stronger.
I think recognizing God's hand in this,
Yeah,
because
that's a
obviously
good one.
it was divine inspiration that, I mean, how did they know that the other lady was grandma?
Right.
You know? Are you tired? I think we're all tired. Okay. So recognizing God's hand in support.
I think one of them is right. We're looking at the opportunities. I think that when you are a family or a person who goes through a lot, you tend to become a very compassionate person to needs and crisis of other people. So sometimes you don't fully understand a situation until you've been there. And so now, I mean, the family
Absolutely.
through marriage problems. They've lost their children. They've just been through hell and back with what they've had to go through as a family. And so now that they've kind of been through just a number of just all these things that are really difficult, they sort of have the opportunity now to be a vessel for other people going through the same things. And so that in itself is kind of, I think, just a strength that they can be more compassionate and
So compassion, being able to feel more compassion and more empathy.
Empathy is the word I keep thinking of. Like,
yeah.
I think that along with like going to the opposite side of blaming the church, like with those siblings who had those very strong, I'd almost say visions, like I feel like at least for those, the brother and sister, they will be very strong in the gospel and really work hard to keep the commandments so they can return to their brother. And if they share that experience in the proper setting with their parents and with the rest of the family, then the family will grow closer together as they work towards being able to see their brother again instead of eternal family union. So it could be the opposite. Instead of blaming the church, they grow stronger in the church.
Okay, so far we have them getting stronger in the church, their marriage getting stronger, growing closer as a family, being able to be more compassionate and empathetic towards others. Is that it?
Recognizing the support that they had. They said they had over 500 people there to support. So recognizing that they are not alone in this this tragedy, that people have compassion and love for them. Yeah, so that they're...
I think that's a really good one. I didn't see that before.
I hope you guys can't hear my husband snoring. I'm sorry. He's like right there, and I'm like, okay, babe.
I like that you
Love
say
'em.
that because we know that God uses people to help us understand things. Like He works through people. I really like that you mentioned that.
Yeah.
That's like God's love when someone does something.
Okay.
And I think that they'll be stronger for like other trials that they have to come, because they have like a good support system as a family. So they'll be able to, like, an opportunity would be that they'd be able to handle other trials with more ease and grace, I guess you could say.
Okay. Oh, future trials. Okay.
And then it says, what were you gonna say?
No, I'm just gonna.
I don't know if we're still like on the subject. No, but it mentions that after they get past like the losing of the babies and stuff, that how they managed to get on with it. Like she stayed home to be a mom.
Right.
And he like ended up learning different skills, like how to fix the cars and how to basically work and budget things out without spending money. So it did teach them, like, it did push them forward a little bit and teach them, like, help them learn different.
So taught them self-reliance.
Yeah, that's good. That's good.
There you go.
Right. Okay.
Okay.
The next one is note important relationship considerations.
What do they mean by that?
Well,
I guessed like what the relationships were, like what are important relationships that were in it, but I was confused.
At the beginning of the case study, it talked about how neither one of them grew up in a home that had like that perfect example. So maybe
Okay, so real quick,
maybe
so I'm
had
looking at the rubric. Sorry. I'm just
Go
looking
for
into the rubric under relationship consideration, and for like the max points, it says noted several important relationship considerations, including which relationships might be particularly at risk and which need to be protected in order for the family to flourish. And then in parentheses, marriage is always a paramount. So we could talk about, you know, their marriage.
I think their marriage was a big one.
Yeah, and you know, there's could be particularly at risk because, you know, their lives are changing. You know, like how are they going to feel when their kids move out? You know, how are they going to cope just being the two of them? And even not with that, but you know, just going back to those negative feelings that we talked about earlier. So that would be
like. I'm so sorry.
So it says that both Janet and Peter came from difficult home circumstances where neither had seen great examples of love and mutual problem solving. So obviously, watching their parents grow up, as they grew up and then they came together as a couple, they didn't have that great example of how to problem solve and how to work together. So that would be a consideration.
Yeah, that's a good one. Let's see. What else? So the brother and the sister, I think, like at the end, it sounds like they have a pretty strong bond because of that dream that they had. So, I'm trying to think, because in like the rubric, it wants us to talk about how they could be at risk, the relationships, and which relationships need to be protected in order to keep the family together.
Right.
So I think that the biggest one is definitely the marriage. The marriage needs to stick together in order for the rest of the family to, be cohesive. So that needs to be protected. And then with the siblings, I think that it's important that they continue to get along. Otherwise, that can cause contention within the rest of the family system.
Right, because they were fighting a lot and they were starting to get violent with each other.
I think, I mean, this might be kind of out there, but there might be like a connection between Jerry, like the brother that died, and maybe like his relationship with them, because I feel like their relationship is really keeping them like closer to God, like keeping them like their testimony better. Does that make sense? I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. So I feel like that's an important relationship to protect, even though he's passed away. But like, I feel like that dream just really like gave them a bigger testimony.
Yeah, to kind of keep his memory alive within the family.
Right.
To not forget about, what they went through together and what a special part of their family that he is. So that would be, like what you're saying, an important thing to protect is just, his memory within the family, so they can keep being cohesive and keep remembering that life is, short and that they need to appreciate one another.
I was thinking about like the family's relationship with the ward, and we mentioned earlier the bishop, just having that strength to lean on those 500 people who showed up at the funeral, and just knowing that they have that backup, and then the ward family being like in tune with the spirit enough to notice when the family's struggling, especially when I assume, I don't know for sure personally, but like when it gets to the anniversaries of their death, it gets really hard. And so having that support.
Yeah, and that would be important to protect, the relationship with their ward, because that in turn is their relationship with their spirituality. And that is important to them, with their son, their children who have passed.
Right.
Okay, so we have protecting the marriage and with the children, and then also the child who has passed. And then we also have the relationship with the ward. Is there anything else that kind of stuck out?
I think the relationship that she has with her mom, obviously they're very, very close. So maybe, because sometimes parents and in-laws, I mean, we love them, but sometimes, if we allow them to interfere, it can put a strain on marriages. So maybe the relationship that she has with her mom and the boundaries.
Yeah, that's an important one.
Because there has to be boundaries in a marriage and with in-laws and things like that, because you got to be together as a family.
So look. Okay, so I think that's a good one. Yeah. Are you guys ready to move on to the coping strategies, or? Okay.
Yep.
So it says recommended coping strategies, and then in the rubric it says we need to offer at least 2 concrete suggestions regarding how extended family, neighbors, friends, etc. respond and could in support of the family.
Okay.
So it sounds like, oh wait, no, hold on, that's the wrong one. That's the next one. So that's the recommendations to others. So the recommendations to family is offer at least 2 concrete suggestions regarding the could/should family cope or respond to stressor events.
Okay. I would say family council.
Yep. That's a good one.
That's a big, hello. That actually could be the answer to a lot of these issues, is family council, really. Which I think is why it's so important that we read that.
So would family prayer be included in family council, things like that?
I would almost have it separate than family council, because having family daily prayer and daily scripture study instead of having family councils like once a week.
Right. But I think also open or close your family council with prayer. But then also your separate morning prayers and your separate night prayers.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
And then also expressing love to each other at the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
That was something that was really emphasized that the brethren and that all of us as a family should do is express love at the beginning, so that way it kind of releases the tension and the animosity that we have towards each other to allow the Spirit in. So.
Yeah, and I think that another good thing would be kind of going hand in hand with family councils would be to make sure that they have quality time that they're spending together as a family. Kind of like family home evening, just something fun that they can do together and be able to bond and not drift apart.
Yep.
Just to kind of maintain the strength of the family system so that they have each other to support.
Let's see. I think, again, going back to the mood log.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Mood logs.
That could be another coping.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah.
I would recommend. Sorry. Go ahead.
Go for it. Oh, no, I'm good. Yeah, go. Sorry. I think out loud and talk out loud. Sorry.
You're all right. One of the things I would recommend is to go to the temple together as a family, and even those who are endowed and everything, to do sealings so they can keep those memories of the promises of eternal families in their head, I guess.
Yeah, that's a good one. The ceilings, I think, especially to kind of keep reminding them. I like that. It's a good one. So let's say that this family, what's like a non-churchy thing that they could do? Because
it's hard.
It's like
the church just helps so much.
I know.
That's why it brings us so much hope and peace. I'm trying to think.
I don't know.
They definitely need to communicate with each other.
Mm-hmm. Communication's key.
Mm-hmm. Communication.
I don't know. I really can't think of anything else.
Like, non-church. I come with all these ones for church.
I guess the mindfulness.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we could throw that in there.
Mm-hmm.
That's a good one.
I'm trying to think non-churchy, so that could be one thing. Oh.
Other than seeing a counselor for families and everything.
Right.
And even like a marriage, like they could go see a family counselor for all of them, but also a marriage counselor.
Right.
Because in the rubric it says that marriage is always a paramount, and so keeping their marriage strong will help them to work as a team to resolve any conflicts that might come up in their families with their children and with one another. So I think that going to therapy for their marriage to talk about the hard things they've gone through could really help.
Yep. Good mindfulness. I also think, we had a lesson where we talked about how to cope with anxiety. So recognizing each other's triggers for anxiety and how to support each other through that.
Okay, so what are our two, because I want at least two concrete things. So we were going to give them two suggestions, like you have to do that or you should do this. What would they be?
I think family councils is probably one of the biggest ones.
And marriage family therapy with a counselor.
I think the therapy is really important.
Okay, so we got the therapy, family councils, and maybe we could put another one of good measures.
Yeah,
so want something else. Yeah.
Quality time.
Yep. think those are good.
Oh, I'm sorry. What was the third one? Sorry.
Quality time.
Quality time. Okay. Awesome. Okay. I got those 3.
Awesome. And then it says recommendation to supporting / involved parties. So that was kind of the one that I listed earlier as far as, so these would be suggestions that we would give to their extended family, their neighbors, people in their ward, friends.
Something simple that I think a lot of Mormon families do is just like bring them over a meal, you know, because then it just takes the stress off of having to cook and like prepare everything. So I think that's something that's pretty easy that other people can do for them.
And keeping them involved,
Yeah, I think also
like
allowing
making sure.
Yeah. Allowing them to serve them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's a good one. And like, as far as, because their ward seems to be really important to them. So, you know, just making sure that they're still being there for them. Because I know that tends to be a problem after something bad happens. Like the ward comes together and they're like really supportive, and then like a couple weeks go by or a couple months go by and people kind of forget about you.
Right.
You know what I mean? So I think that would be something that would be important to keep reaching out and to try and maintain a friendship so that they have someone to rely on. So like with home teachers or visiting teachers, that could be really important.
I think one of the big things for the extended family and ward members and everything is to just be patient with them, I guess. Don't try and hurry them along with their grieving, because you need to grieve, but be patient and supportive while they do it.
Okay, so we have.
It's like to just listen more to, like not prone, and not ask and say, well, how are you? You know, oh, your son's in bed. Like, I think one of the worst things that you could probably do is tell people that, oh, at least there's somewhere better, you know, because the family doesn't want to hear that. Definitely.
Having gone through that, yeah, I totally agree. It's the last thing you want to hear, and it doesn't matter. You can have the full gospel perspective, but when you're going through it, it doesn't matter because you're still hurting inside. And so having people remind you, like, oh, they're in a better place. Okay, that's great. I totally get it, but I want them here. So yeah,
exactly. No.
So yeah,
definitely just like let them know to be respectful, to be willing to listen, not from. I think that's
exactly.
Okay, so maybe that can be a specific recommendation we could do to families. So like with the ward, we had, you know, keep them involved and keep visiting them. And then with like family and friends, we could say to not pressure them and to be empathetic and understanding.
Yep.
You know, so like what you were saying is like, don't pretend like you know what they're going through. Like, oh, well, they're in a better place. Like, you don't need to be so sad. Just kind of like let them and be there for them. So, you know, being there for them would be simple.
Exactly. Because we already know that, but we have to get to that place, right? So we have to, you gotta let people go through the process. So.
Okay, let's see. Okay, is there any other like concrete things I feel like we should do? So we have for the ward and for the friends and family. Anything else?
Involved parties. For the male friendships, keep reaching out to friendships, being patient. So that's a lot of it's focusing on the friends in the ward. I guess for family, I guess knowing when to kind of step back.
Not being too involved.
Yeah. So I think going back to the boundaries.
It's a good one.
Outside. Family. Knowing when to step back. Okay.
Okay. That was like
Kinda rough.
those are the
That was a
last
lot.
of the sections. Yeah.
Yeah.
Michelle, looking at, your notes right now, is there anything that you feel like you feel more comfortable we talked about a little bit more?
I mean, I feel like we kind of covered everything. I think it's just more of just kind of elaborating more on the examples. So I think at this point, what we could do is I can put it in a Google Doc,
Mm-hmm.
and then each of us could just take one of the questions and expand on it a little bit more if we wanted to do that, or I could type it all up and just shit and all that, poof it up and stuff. But I think, I mean, we have some really good suggestions. The only thing I can think of is like the recommendation to supporting involved parties, like trying to make it more like clinical, I guess, so to speak, of like the principles. But I mean, it's common sense. So I don't know how to. I mean, I just think boundaries, allowing people to support. I mean, it's pretty straightforward. So I don't know how we can make that clinical.
Yeah, so for now, let's put it in the Google Docs so that everyone has access to it. Maybe you could go, if you have time, you can go through and just put the summary there, just so we have that, and then we can all go through. Let's see, there's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, like 6 main things, not including the summary. So, I think that second one, the list of principles and concepts, I think that we should all go in there and talk about that one. So all the ones that we brought up, we can just go in and be like, okay, so for family council, this and this. You know what I'm saying?
Boom. Yep, I do.
So all of us can do the list of principles and concepts.
Okay.
And then,
okay, so
and you'll have all your little notes on there. We can just go through and pick whichever one we want and start working on it.
Because this is due Saturday night, right?
I don't know. Does anyone know that for sure?
I can double check here in half a sec.
Yeah, let's check that.
Okay.
Because that would be.
Give me 2 seconds.
That'd be really bad if it's due like, I don't know, tomorrow, Thursday. Let's see. Case analysis worksheet. Case study analysis.
It says case study number 2 group analysis due February 17th at 11:59 p.m. So yeah, that's Saturday.
Saturday. Awesome. Yay.
Okay.
And I think we have all our phone numbers, so we can communicate back and forth and text and be like, hey, did you go in and do this or whatever? I mean, I guess we could put like, I mean, not that we're going to turn it in with Nate. I mean, we're going to list everyone under there, but I guess once you touch something, maybe like put your name on it. That way we know, okay, oh, you got that. Okay, next person does that, so forth.
Yeah, we can do that.
We're not doubling up. I mean, we can do that.
Usually on a Google document, it already shows who edited what, where.
Oh, that's right. It does. Thank you for that reminder. Yep. Okay, then I will add it to Google Docs, and I think we're set.
Awesome, guys. I'm so glad we got this over with earlier rather than later. I was worried for a minute earlier today. I was like, I don't have a group. I don't know what's going on. So.
Well, it was
It's right. Me too.
Yeah, I was pretty cranky most of the day. I'm not going to lie. I think we all were.
It was too complicated the way they had it set up.
Right?
It just wasn't working. And so I was like finding strays. I was like, okay, Astrid said that she didn't have anyone, and Caitlin said she didn't have anyone.
Yeah.
So I just rope them in.
Exactly.
Well, thank you very much. Awesome. I greatly appreciate it.
Yeah. I just think, like, I don't know, this has been the most complicated thing. Like, it could have been just like, here's your group discussion board. Okay, you guys figure out when to meet, where to meet. Done.
Yeah.
Turn something in. Do a Zoom, do Google, do a Skype. Done. Chat, email back and forth. It got way too complicated. The system isn't broken. They don't need to refix it. The wheel's not broken.
We're good. Do you guys know one more thing before we go? when I stop the broadcast, do you know where I'm supposed to submit this?
Oh my gosh.
I just like leave it on
That
the
is a
internet.
fantastic question.
Do I send her a link? I have no idea.
Oh.
Let
I
me check really quick.
have those directions.
In part 3, it says something invitations for the Google Air. If you choose to do so, you may use that.
I mean, I have her number. I just feel bad. I feel like I've been harassing her for the past couple of days.
I would say submit it as a link.
I would almost just submit it as a link.
Yeah, okay, I'll do that, and then if she's like, I can't figure this out, then I'll just go from there. So,
Yeah.
awesome.
I'm trying to remember where it said we needed to video it.
Well, I know it did. I just don't know
Yeah.
where.
Yeah, I remember reading it.
And she texted me, like, she put, Rosalind, she put you in our group, like, you know, right before this.
Mhm.
And so she was texting me, she's like, make sure you record it. And so that's kind of what I remembered. She texted me, was like, make sure you do this. So.
So I think what we could do, I don't know if this would work, but where we submit it, you know how it has the comment field underneath? We could attach the link there.
Mm-hmm.
And that way she can see the video.
I would just submit it that way and send it as an email so you have double, like, just in case.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's just double ourselves and yeah. Let's just make sure she got it. She knows that. Hello.
Yeah, I'll like text it to her. Put it on her Facebook. You know, it's fine.
Instagrammer. Everything. Yeah. But I think if we email her and if we include the link in the submission comments, I think she should have it by then. I would hope.
Awesome. So Google Docs,
So
let's try and have everything done. I would prefer if we would not like be working on it at Saturday at like 11 o'clock. So if we could all have our parts done, like at least by Saturday morning.
That would be perfect. Yes.
Yeah, that way we don't have to stress about it or worry that someone isn't gonna do their part.
Yeah.
So it's pretty easy.
And okay, so I typed it up. I'm gonna put it in the Google Leaks, and then you want me to submit it. So if you send me the link to the video, I can connect it all together.
Yeah, I'll put the link just like on the page somewhere, and I'll also email it to her.
Okay, perfect. Okay. Awesome. Okay. And then we could do one final text, like ready to go, submit. Okay.
Yep.
Sounds awesome.
We're all in the chat. I'll put Rosalind in the group chat too. I don't think you're in there yet, so I'll put you in there.
Wait.
Awesome. Okay, is there anything else, guys, that you guys are worried about, or are we good?
Do you need my phone number?
No, wait. Yes, you can just email it to me.
Okay, sounds good.
Okay.
Awesome. All right. Bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye. Have a good night. Happy Valentine's.
Oh yeah.
You too.
Good summer.
Okay. Bye.